Hi, I am Corrine Malcolm, and welcome back to Inside Adidas Terrex here at our team chalet in the beautiful Chamonix Valley. Since we talked to you last evening, our athletes this morning loaded up into cars, headed over into Italy to Courmayeur, and they are currently racing their way back to Chamonix over 101 kilometers. We also have athletes out on the course right now racing from Chamonix all the way around Mont Blanc back to Chamonix. They'll be finishing tomorrow. We're really excited in the big UTMB race, the feature race of this weekend. But while we're here, we're going to continue to check in with our athletes, see what they're up to, see what they've been up to before arriving here in the valley. And with me, I've got teammate Macy. Macy, you do a lot of different things. But one of the things that I have been really intrigued by and been following along a lot with over the past 18 months, 2 years, I think, from knowing you, is that your interest in kind of environmental issues and how as an athlete you can be an advocate for those things, both inside the sport and outside the sport. And I'm wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about what it's like to be an athlete and to be put up against things like traveling, things that we know can have environmental impacts, and balancing that with your knowledge and passion for the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting and super important question, I think. I think for us as athletes or as, somebody, like basically everyone, there's lots of possibilities for you to advocate and also do little things that when we all do those, then add up to something that is has a really good and positive impact on everything we do.
Yeah, is there anything specific that we can do as individuals? I feel like sometimes I get really scared by these big world problems because I'm just one human, and I feel like the actions that I can take aren't big enough. But what can we do as individuals just roaming around in the world and as athletes to try to have an impact, even if it's really small, on climate change?
Yeah, also here I think there's lots of different things. I mean, to come here all the way to Chamonix, you can create carpools, or you don't go down to the valley with a car, but you just walk, which is beautiful anyways, right? Or you don't use as much or any plastic bottles if it's not 100% necessary. And all these things, I think they definitely will add up to something. At least that's what I like to think about it.
Yeah, is there anything specific that you've done in your life at home to try to make changes?
Well, I'm for myself, I'm like a vegetarian, which I think has a big impact. I try to buy locally. I don't do plastic bottles at all. I don't drive my car as often. But also I've been joining the Kylian Jornet Foundation recently. And here we try to create direct action, but also we advocate and educate a lot. So I've been talking with Kylian on a Athlete Climate Academy podcast, which is out there now. They have different videos and podcasts to look at, and where you can learn a lot from different experts from different fields. And yeah, I think they give lots of good recommendations on how to do these little things that when we all do them will add up to something great.
Yeah, I know it's a struggle, and I think at times it's easy to look at people who are very vocal about it and point out their imperfections. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, you're an advocate for the climate, but you travel a lot. Or, hey, you're an advocate for the climate, but during the pandemic, you couldn't use, your own coffee mug in a lot of places. In the US, we weren't allowed to bring our reusable mugs in if we were trying to buy coffee. Yeah. And it's easy to point fingers and feel like either someone else is imperfect or you're imperfect. Is there a way to balance that as we critique others, but also as we critique ourselves and trying to find that balance?
Yeah, I think it's a question about self-compassion and compassion, actually, to understand that nobody of us is perfect, and we probably don't have to be, or we cannot be. And I think that's okay to accept, but still, on the other hand, do as much as possible about it. So if you cannot bring your own coffee mug to the coffee place, then maybe at least ask not to have the plastic lid on top, but just the paper container, which takes away the biggest harm from your coffee consumption then in the first place, which is already a great start, I think.
Yeah, they're doing that here. I noticed in the Valley, if you get coffee and you get coffee to go, since arriving in Europe, they encourage you or don't even offer a lid. And I think it seems really small, but all those little actions, I think, add up. Do you have any
Definitely.
projects? I feel like a lot of us are gearing towards projects, things that we can do to raise awareness. And obviously you've been working with the Kylian Jornet Foundation. Is there anything else that you are building to in this next year or even further down the road as far as ways that you can create more vocalization for it and make it more actionable for all of us?
Yes, so not only voluntarily but also professionally, I'm a little bit involved in the Kylian Jornet Foundation with the agency Act 3 that I'm working for.
Cool.
So we are creating the communication strategy around the Athlete Climate Academy, and the Athlete Climate Academy will be quite a big thing with so many different topics that you can listen and learn about, and that's going to be fun and also very, very good for all of us to know and then actually act on it.
Yeah, and then what do you think we can do? Obviously, we or other brands can do to try to reduce our impact, our harm. Obviously, we use a lot of gear.
Yeah.
We use a lot of gear over and over again. And I know between traveling, using new gear a lot, you know, it doesn't feel very reduce, like reuse, recycle. How can we be better as a brand, as a group of athletes, as an individual athlete in moving that ball the right direction?
Yeah. That's a huge topic. I mean, first of all, you probably should at least try to do your best to educate yourself on the different sustainability concepts that the brands kind of proclaim. Some of them are better, some of them are worse, but you know, marketing makes
everything sound
good, which it not necessarily always isn't, is it? So that's something very important. And then we as athletes, with having a platform to talk about, I think it's also important to help brands spread the good messages and maybe help the consumer to understand what messages are just messages and what messages actually transport something great, something
impactful.
Good. Yeah.
And then so people at home, I feel like you're sitting there, it's like it can be confusing and feel really overwhelming about what's my next step. Are there any simple tips or tricks that people at home who want to start making a difference in their own lives that they can do taking forward, even if they're really little things?
Yeah. I mean, little things would be, and we touch on that, create carpools when you want to go somewhere. Do not use plastic bottles unless you really have to. Take glass bottles or tap water in most places of the world. Some places of the world you can drink tap water without any issue, you know. I think those are very, very little things. And then, I always feel a little bit awkward to suggest that to people, but the food, you know, has a big impact on CO2, on water usage in places where we don't have much water to spare, but also when it comes to methane and everything, it is food. So eating meat is not necessarily the best thing for the planet, but being a vegetarian, I always feel uncomfortable suggesting people to not eat meat, but maybe eating less meat. If you are a meat eater, then this is definitely already a big help. Yeah,
I think conscious consumption in all of our avenues of life, right? Be it cars, be it clothing, be it fast fashion, be it how we eat.
Yeah.
It's kind of just being conscious of all of that and making small changes, maybe more than anything.
Definitely. So once you made it here to Chamonix and you maybe even drove by car, then at least be grateful that you are here. I mean, it's hard not to, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is not only good for the planet, but also for yourself.
Yeah, you got to fill the spirit sponge a little bit while taking care of the world around you, and that can be a hard balance.
Exactly. I would agree to that.
Well, we've got a lot of work to do, and this is going to be a continuing topic for all of us, I think, as we move into the future. Living on this planet that's both magnificent and at danger at times. So thank you for getting the conversation started with all of us. We're going to leave for just a couple minutes for Tom's trail tips, and we'll be back with another interview.
Hey guys, welcome back to Tom's Top Trail Tips. What we're going to focus on today is fueling and making sure that you have enough energy for a race. So lots of people ask me, how much do you fuel, how much do you eat, and how much do you drink during a race? And I think for me it just changes so much during a race, and you've got to think about more than just the time that you're going to be running, but also the terrain you're going to be running on and how fast and how hard you're going to be working, because the harder you're working, the more fuel you're going to need, but also the harder it is to fuel, because that's when you can get a bad stomach. So typically what I like to do is I like to fuel between 1 to 1.5 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight. So if you were 70 kilograms, then I would recommend, in an ideal world, consuming sort of somewhere between 70 grams and 100 grams of carbohydrate every hour. Which, yes, this does seem like a lot, and there are some different factors in it. But I think the most important thing with fueling that people don't see is they're trying to figure out exactly how much they need to fuel during the race. But actually, this should all be practiced in your training. And the training for racing is just the best time to find out exactly what you need to fuel and how much you need to fuel and what products you like. If you like this product or you like that product, and what works the best for you. If you like gels or drinks or bananas or bread. And the aid stations at UTMB have got such great fuel. So I think it's going to be so important to make sure you are fully fueled. And I think what people sometimes forget is that when it gets colder, you need to fuel a little bit more because your body is having to work a little bit harder to try and stay warm. So if you are racing UTMB or anything where you're going to be running through the night, then it's going to be really important to try and consume a little bit more fuel during the night because your body's going to be using more fuel in order to power you there. So I hope you found that interesting. If you've got any questions about fueling, just let me know or ask any of my Adidas Terrex teammates if you see them out in Chamonix. But yeah, until then, hope you're enjoying the week and I'd like to see you soon.
Welcome back with me. I have my teammate Taylor Nowlin. Taylor, you ran OCC yesterday. How are you feeling?
I can get up and down the stairs this morning without relying too much on the handrail, which I feel like is a huge accomplishment. So
that's
not bad given the circumstances.
That's a big win. So once again, 55, 56 kilometers, over 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters of climbing or so, and descending. That's a lot on the human body. But what I brought you here today to talk about is you're a really interesting athlete. A lot of us can be full-time athletes, or some of us can be full-time athletes. You, outside of your running, work as an ICU nurse, and you happen to graduate from nursing school during a global pandemic. That's a lot for anyone to take in, and I wonder, I think the big question here for a lot of people at home is how do I balance running and life? And so I think that's where we're going to start, is how are you finding balance in this really hard, very energy draining job and running?
Honestly, it's been really difficult, and I feel like it continues to be a learning experience for me. I have definitely found myself making a much more flexible schedule than like what I initially had planned. My training has been inconsistently consistent is what I call it. What are we doing with the bird?
We're going to let it drink coffee.
Okay.
It's okay. So training's been inconsistent.
Yeah, it's been inconsistent. But like pretty much I'll do the same workouts each week, but I'll just do them in a completely different order every week. And that's been a perfect analogy to like how all my training and all my life is going, is just like go with the flow because it's just a very unpredictable situation.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of us can place judgment on ourselves when we're in that position of like, am I doing enough? Other people are doing other things.
Yeah.
How have you been able to thread the needle on not getting bogged down in what you're doing, what's best for you versus what's best for other people who are not in the same situation at all?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've just stayed off Strava and like tried to only focus on like what I'm doing and how I'm feeling. And if I feel good about my training, if I can stay healthy, then that just has to be enough for me, because I can't compare myself to other athletes who don't have the same schedule as me, because otherwise I'll always feel like I'm coming up short.
Yeah, same schedule, same stress, same emotional drain. And we had a great conversation the other night over dinner about how do you celebrate around tragedy? How do you feel good about things around tragedy? And so every day at work, you are seeing really horrible things. Like you're seeing people having their worst days over and over again. How have you been able to find the freedom or like breathing room in your life to enjoy running, to try to push yourself in race while all of that's going on? Because I think a lot of us are struggling with that. Like, how do we celebrate the small things while this other thing's going on?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, one thing that I've noticed about a lot of my coworkers and making it through, just seeing that level of like emotionally really, really heavy stuff, is like having a sense of humor and doing other things that really take your mind off of it. Because if you're too absorbed in like the tragedy and the difficulty that we're seeing with COVID, it can just be so emotionally heavy that it's really hard to do anything else. And I think that's been hugely helpful.
Yeah, I think we've all had to learn that to some degree this year. I think you're in a different position than many of us who have not experienced as much direct loss, as much direct visual loss. And I guess, I mean, talking to Abby yesterday about the JMT, right? You learn things from some of these experiences that you can bring, that you didn't know about yourself, that you didn't know about how you relate to running. And I'm wondering if this experience has shaped how you think about exercise or racing or training or how you feel about yourself doing any of those things.
Yeah. It's definitely given me an entirely different perspective. I feel like I've ended up being so much more grateful for running and the opportunity to travel and do these things that like require physical health, because so many people are not able to do that, or it's taken from them really quickly. And so just being out here at all is a huge gift. And I feel like personally, I mean, one thing I was thinking of yesterday while I was racing is like, wow, working 12-hour shifts and being on your legs for that long. Like when you're out for like a 6-hour race, it like you compare it to a 12-hour day where you start to get tired like a few hours in, and like I can't just like walk out of the hospital and be like, I need a break right now, I'm feeling tired. I have patients that are depending on me. So when you go out and run an ultra, it's like, you know, I really think it helps with like mental preparation and like having the stamina to make it through and not having it feel like overwhelmingly long.
Yeah, it's a totally like, it's a frame shift. Like I've got other friends who work in nursing or in healthcare or as EMTs and firefighters. And yeah, they're like, oh, working night shift has prepared me to run UTMB through the night.
Yeah. I seriously feel like I'm so much tougher now. And when things go wrong, it's so much easier to just be like, well, I can't just like leave this situation. Like I'm going to have to find a way to turn it around, because that's something I do at work like literally every day. Like you can see someone have something horrible happen and then meet another patient in an entirely different space, and you have to be able to transition emotionally between the two. And I feel like it's super similar with running.
Yeah, you have to be able to adapt emotionally to whatever's going on. And I think being trained to do that on the job is one thing. And I'm wondering, so you're learning to adapt and you're taking that and you're bringing that into your running. You're like, oh, cool, I can problem solve now really efficiently. It's not that bad. Are there any other skills that you've found through this experience over the last 18 months, 2 years, that you're bringing into your racing and running toolbox?
Oh man, there's a lot of things. I think the ability to like connect with people has also been something that like I've grown a lot as a nurse doing that, because I'm constantly meeting new people, and like I'm pretty introverted, and it's
my God.
not easy to do that. And I feel like it relates nicely to trail running, because you can just like kind of make friends while you're out there and start conversations with people, and it's amazing like how that can kind of take your mind off what would be kind of a painful experience.
Yeah, it allows you to not to dissociate completely, but to move with the pain and move with the discomfort and find some grace out there. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. If there's anything that our viewers at home could take away from your experience, like what would you say is like, hey, this is a good thing to bring into your running? Maybe it's just adapting, but.
Oh man. I mean, I think probably like having a really holistic view of it. I think a lot of runners can get like tunnel vision towards just running, and then when you have a rough day, it feels like everything is being taken from you. And I think one thing I've learned with having a career outside of running is that like if I have a bad running day, I can show up to work and have a great day there, and like vice versa. So I think it's really helped me like get through difficult times, is just to have many things that mean a lot to me and not just one thing.
Yeah, it's been a theme. We talked to Holly about this yesterday. She's like, I've got a life outside of running, so I'm hurt. I'm okay. I'm not going to fall apart. I think that's very valuable information for us all to take forward, and being grateful for where we are, that we get to do the things, because there are other things that are much worse than what we are getting to do, and the suffering that we are going to experience out there on the trail. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us, for dealing with a bird attack in the middle of all of that.
So distracting.
So distracting.
I feel like we reeled it back in, though.
We did great. So we're going to be following our UTMB athletes. We're going to be following our CCC athletes. Things are going to be really exciting this evening, and we're going to get to recap a lot of it for you tomorrow. So stay tuned. We'll be seeing you tomorrow, Saturday evening. We can't wait to see you then.